You are tuned in to On Air with Chris Shanafelt.
Welcome back On Air with Chris Shanafelt, and I'm now joined by the face of Chicago sports media. You can hear him Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to noon on his ESPN Chicago radio show, Kaplan Company, and he also hosts Sports Talk Live on NBC Sports Chicago. It's a pleasure to welcome back onto the show David Kaplan, the Cap Man. Cap, how's everything going?
We're hanging in there, just trying to socially distance and wash my hands a billion times like everybody else. But everything's good. Hope everything's good in your world.
Everything is great, Cap. Really appreciate you taking the time. We've officially reached draft week in the NFL, Cap. Before we get to what you'd like to see the Chicago Bears address this weekend, I want to get your thoughts on some of the offseason acquisitions, headlined, of course, by quarterback Nick Foles, who came over from Jacksonville for a fourth-round draft pick. What does the addition of the former Super Bowl MVP mean for Mitchell Trubisky, and could his days be numbered here in Chicago?
Well, they could be, absolutely. You bring in a guy with the resume of a Nick Foles. Look, Nick's had three opportunities, Philadelphia, St. Louis, and Jacksonville, where he hasn't done very well when they've handed him the keys on opening day. But when he comes in as a security blanket and a rescue-type guy, he's been very, very good, as evidenced by what he did with Philadelphia winning the Super Bowl. So I like Nick Foles. He's a wonderful person from everything I've heard. He's got good qualities about him. But I don't think this thing is like a slam dunk that he's going to be the starting quarterback. But it also means Mitchell Trubisky better come ready, loaded for bear, ready to play. Because if he doesn't, he's got no chance.
Yeah, we'll see how Mitchell Trubisky handles himself under pressure. It'll be his first time going through a quarterback competition at the NFL level. Now, on the first day of free agency, Cap, the Bears decided to sign Jimmy Graham to a 2-year, $16 million deal with $9 million guaranteed. Many outlets out there have this as the worst free agent signing this spring by any NFL team. We know how important the tight end position is to the Matt Nagy offense. The position was almost non-existent on this team last year. What are the chances that a 33-year-old Jimmy Graham resurrects his career here in Chicago?
I think that he will be used more here than he was in Green Bay, just a different style. And he says he feels great, that he's running well and he's healthy. Look, it's really essentially a 1-year contract. That's all it is. It's a deal for $9 million guaranteed, 2 years, 16. So at the end of this year coming, that if you look at it and go, yeah, it didn't work, then you swallow the $1 million that's left and say, see you later. And if it works out, then you have him on an incredibly, team-friendly deal for that second year. So this is not a long-term solution. They won't have him when he's beyond age 35, I wouldn't think. But we'll find out. He's still 6'7". He's still 250 pounds, and he can make plays in the red zone. We'll see if they can get the football to him.
The Bears are down to 8 tight ends on the current roster. Friday, the team announced that they were going to be releasing tight end Trey Burton just 2 years into the 4-year contract he signed in 2018. He dealt with injuries all throughout his time here in Chicago, but, he did have a decent first year, a pretty productive first year with the Bears, of course, before that playoff game against the Philadelphia Eagles. And then, of course, last year he just couldn't stay on the field. I don't think this was really a surprising move by any means, Cap, but how do you feel about the timing? Would you have liked to have gotten a look at Burton in training camp or preseason, or what was it best that they moved on from him when they did?
Yeah, people around the scene have said to me that he's a really good guy in the room. He's just not very tough, and that you didn't go, I want that guy in the foxhole with me. So if that's the case, then it's probably time to make the move. They know their roster better than we know their roster. That's A. B, they may feel like they've got something worked out to get Cole Kmet or Bryson Hopkins or one of the other good tight ends in the draft, and so they feel like we're going to address that. Let's move on him now, get our salary cap savings. I think if they make it a post-June 1 designation, they're going to save a couple of $1 million on this year's cap, and they need all the space they can get. So, yeah, I don't think it was surprising, and I think it probably is for the best for both sides.
Yeah, maybe they go after another small school tight end with the first name Adam, and Adam Trotman out of Dayton. We know how Adam Shaheen has worked out, though, former second-round pick out of Ashland. The Bears' biggest splash signing came on the defensive side of the ball, Cap, as they signed defensive end Robert Quinn, formerly of the Rams, formerly of the Dallas Cowboys, to a 5-year, $70 million deal. He's coming off of a season in which he tracked down 11.5 sacks and 13 tackles for loss in, I believe, only 13 or 14 games. This is clearly an upgrade over Leonard Floyd, but some, including Brian Urlacher, have questioned this move, stating that that type of money could have been used elsewhere. Do you think that this was a smart move by the Bears to invest in another bookend defensive end to go alongside Khalil Mack on the opposite side?
Yeah, I think actually this is a no-brainer. Love Brian Urlacher. Couldn't disagree with him more. I think it's a sensational decision to bring this guy in because now that you have Akeem Hicks healthy, you got Eddie Goldman, you got Roquan Smith, you got Danny Trevathan back, you got Bilal Nichols, you got Roy Robertson Harris, you have Khalil Mack. Oh, and by the way, we're going to put another guy who gets to the quarterback better than anyone in the NFL last year in terms of his win rate at the line of scrimmage. He was number one, and it wasn't even close. So I can have that guy and make Khalil Mack that much better. I think this was a no-brainer for that defense.
Again, we're chatting with David Kaplan, host of Kaplan Company on ESPN 1000, does TV for NBC Sports Chicago as well. And Cap, it's my favorite time of the year as the NFL draft kicks off this week. Bears do not have a first-round draft pick as it stands, but they do have 2 second-round picks, a 5th-round pick, 2 6th-round picks, and 2 7th-round picks. Needless to say, it's very important that they hit on those 2 second-round picks, and we'll see if Ryan Pace can work his magic in the later rounds on day 3 as he has in the past. But what are some areas you'd like to see the Bears address early on here in the draft?
Offensive line, wide receiver, / tight end. I'm talking about a pass catcher, and cornerback. Those are the 3 areas for me they have to address. If they can get a power running back in the draft, great. But I want, corner. It could also be a safety like the Delpit kid, Grant Delpit at LSU, is a beast. I don't think he's going to be there when they pick at 43. But if you said I could package, my 2nd-round pick and something else to move up a handful of spots and get a guy like that and play him next to Eddie Jackson, yeah, I'd be thrilled. But they do need some depth in that defensive backfield.
They certainly do. Another name to look out for is Southern Illinois safety Jeremy Chin, who's had a stellar draft off season at the Combine, at the Senior Bowl, really performed well. And, of course, we know how Ryan Pace likes those small school players. Now, Ryan Pace said very early on in his Bears tenure, Cap, that he'd like to draft a quarterback every year. This week will be his 6th draft as Bears general manager, and the only quarterback he selected is Mitchell Trubisky. Would you like to see them address the quarterback position despite trading for Foles last month? And is there any names out there that you would like to see the Bears go out and grab maybe at some point on day 3 of the draft?
Yeah, I would not draft a quarterback here. Now, look, if I'm sitting there at pick 43 and somebody's on the board and my scouts say to me, we have to take him, that's the next, generational talent, like he's like that guy, okay, then you take him. But my question would be, why is that guy still sitting there in the 2nd round? If you're talking about Jalen Hurts, hard pass from me. I don't think he's as accurate a passer as you need. And as Mike Tannenbaum, the former GM of the Jets and Dolphins, said on my radio show last week, Jalen Hurts is Mitchell Trubisky. Great in the room, good leader, makes plays with his legs, extends plays, has, ability at times to make some throws, but not very accurate. So hard pass on Jalen Hurts. I don't see any of the guys at the top of the draft sliding into the 2nd round. So I do not want to see a quarterback unless it's, a throwaway pick rounds 5, 6, 7, and you really believe in the guy.
A couple more questions for David Kaplan, host of Kaplan Company on ESPN Chicago. And Cap, one of the main reasons why I wanted to get you on was to talk about Chet Kopic, one of the all-time great sports minds that the city of Chicago was blessed with. Friday, April 17th, marked 1 year since we received the tragic news that he passed away due to injuries suffered in a car accident in Savannah, Georgia. I cannot believe it's already been a year, but that'll certainly be a day I'll never forget. Chet was somebody I've had the pleasure of chatting with a handful of times. I know you've been very vocal on the impact that he's had on you and your career. What's the first memory that comes to mind when thinking about the godfather of Chicago sports radio, Chet Kopic?
I wouldn't be doing this interview with you because you'd have had no interest in talking to me because you'd never have heard of me without Chet Kopic and all he did for my career. Look, before there was sports radio, there was Chet Kopic with Kopic on Sports. And Chet Kopic was nightly appointment listening. His guest list, Rolodex, was unbelievable. And I've told anyone who will listen, he had a unique style. You'll never see a style like that again. But without that guy, I'm not on this interview because you'd never have heard of me.
In talking about his style, Cap, truly a trailblazer for not only sports radio, but sports television and entertainment shows as well. For the younger audience out there listening, Cap, just how big was Kopic back in the 80s, back in the 90s, and what allowed him to be so successful and become a trailblazer of sorts?
Because he was opinionated, he had a great Rolodex, so he could get anybody he needed on, and because there weren't 40 billion sports radio shows, you didn't have people going, oh, I got another call from a sports station. Like the big guests, they all end up getting inundated with calls on a daily basis. Hey, man, can you come on my show? Hey, man, can you come on my show? To the point where these guys just go, no, can't do it. I don't have time for all the interview requests. So back then, there was not a lot there, and so that gave Chet a leg up on everyone, and then Chet was really good about following up and maintaining those relationships. So, yeah, he was appointment listening.
Yeah, he certainly was. I remember the very first time I talked to him on an interview about 5-6 years ago. I was a student at Columbia College Chicago, where, of course, he went to school at, and I totally butchered it. I called him the grandfather of all sports, not the godfather of sports, but I quickly learned that, and again, certainly missed. I wonder what it would have been like if social media was around during his heyday, although he was on Twitter and Facebook pretty often the last 5-6 years. But yeah, certainly somebody who has had a huge impact on the sports media industry, and certainly very well missed. Cap, that's all I have for you today. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. Any final words before we let you go?
No, just stay safe and healthy, man.
Absolutely. Hey, next time we get you on, we'll have to talk about how awful of a movie Avatar is, all right?
Yeah, deal. You got a deal.
Again, listen to Kaplan Company on ESPN Chicago, WMVP AM 1000, as well as Sports Talk Live on NBC Sports Chicago. Thanks again, Cap. Keep up the great work and stay safe out there, my friend.
You too. Best wishes.